Hello there, welcome back to my views and news. Two news stories. Three news stories rather. First one is about a meeting between a top US diplomat for the Horn of Africa and some pro-Fano figures, pro-Fano Ethiopian figures. We know that Mike Hammer, US Special Envoy to the Horn of Africa, is in Ethiopia. He visited Kenya and now he is in Ethiopia. And during his visit, he met with top Ethiopian government officials. He's still, I think, in Addis Ababa. Did he meet any Fano representative or anyone who is speaking against the military operation in the Amhara region? Details for you. Secondly, viewers, Asmara declaration has been issued. Sudanese parties which met in Asmara, Eritrean capital, have issued this declaration. Week-long discussions were held. Burhan also visited Asmara for a day, and now this declaration has been issued. And last night, Hemedti spoke to Hamdan Dagalo, RSF chief, spoke as well. A audio message released by Hemedti. Hemedti is saying that Sudan could split. What did he say? He mentioned what I have been hinting at, that Burhan is working to establish a state in eastern and northern parts of Sudan. Firstly, viewers, a correction first before these three news stories. I read a video a few hours ago about protests by Eritrean opposition groups. Brigade Nihamud members are protesting. They're protesting in front of embassies. Three protests so far. One in London, UK. Second one in Ottawa, Canada. Third one in the Netherlands. The three protests were held in front of Israeli embassies, not Eritrean embassies. The protests were held in front of Israeli embassies because Israeli authorities have arrested Brigade Nihamud members and pro-Eritrean government members after clashes more than a week ago in Tel Aviv, Israel capital, between these Eritrean groups. And some of these Brigade Nihamud members have been released, others are still there in custody, facing a trial, likely deportation too. That is why these Eritrean opposition groups are protesting in front of Israeli embassies, asking Israel to release all Brigade Nihamud members and to deport pro-Eritrean government Eritreans from Israel. Now, three news stories. Firstly, Mike Hammer is in Ethiopia, viewers. Mike Hammer is top US diplomat for the Horn of Africa, special envoy for the Horn of Africa. Mike Hammer played a key role in negotiations leading to Pretoria deal. He's the one who backed TPLF, who convinced TPLF to talk, and it was US Air Force. US planes were used to take Tigray leadership from Tigray for talks. Talks were held in Djibouti, failed, then second round of talks held in South Africa, Pretoria. Talks were successful and peace deal was signed. US was the main player. Now US is calling for resolution to conflicts in Amhara and Oromia. Before Mike Hammer's visit of Ethiopia, US State Department issued a statement and Mike Hammer visited Brussels too. He met with EU leaders. EU and the US State Department issued separate statements calling for negotiated solution to the conflicts in Amhara and Oromia. So US is calling for talks to resolve the conflict, especially in Amhara. Was there any meeting between Mike Hammer and pro-Fano elements? Because he has held meetings with Ethiopian government officials, opposition politicians too, reportedly. He met with Getachew too, did a video on that. Now, reportedly, Mike Hammer has held a meeting with an Amhara politician who spoke against imposition of state of emergency in Ethiopia and Amhara a few days ago at a parliament session. His name is Gado Andergacho, former Minister of Foreign Affairs of Ethiopia. But since last year, he has been the one who was sidelined because he spoke in support of Fano last year. He and Johannes Buyalio were sidelined from the party. They lost their seat at party's central committee too. And Gado does not have any main portfolio in federal government now. Johannes Buyalio, the other government critic, is in custody, arrested a few weeks ago. Gado opposed declaration of state of emergency when state of emergency was passed at a session of Ethiopian parliament, delivered a speech. He unequivocally opposed the imposition of state of emergency. But can we say he's Fano representative? No, we cannot say. But he's pro-Fano. He is close to Fano. Fano fighters want to be led by new faces. They don't want Gado to be in charge, to be the face of the struggle. They don't want other old Amhara politicians. They say these Amhara politicians play double games. They stay in touch with the ruling party too, and they are not real protectors of Amhara interests. But Gado is one of those politicians who oppose state of emergency. So a meeting was held between Mike Hammer and Gado and Gacho. There was no have on the meeting, but after the meeting, when Gado was on his way towards his house, he was intercepted by security forces. Intelligence agency agents of Ethiopia stopped Gado Gacho. His vehicle was searched. His electronic devices were taken into custody. His laptop reportedly was taken into custody by NIS agents. Why? It is being said that Gado shared some material with Mike Hammer. The material was stored in his laptop, and when he met with Mike Hammer, he had that laptop. That is why when he returned, his vehicle was searched, his laptop was taken into custody by security forces. So this is the interaction between pro-Fano elements and the top US diplomat, who is Mike Hammer. Secondly, viewers, Asmara declaration. Sudanese political parties have jointly agreed on a declaration after week-long discussions held in Eritrea. Eritrea is emerging as a key player in the Horn of Africa, in East Africa. Eritrea was nowhere to resolve the conflict in Sudan a few weeks ago. Talks are being held between Rapid Support Forces and Sudanese military in Jeddah. But now Eritrea seems to be taking the lead. Asmara declaration has the backing of several players, mostly political players of Sudan. Justice and Equality Movement of Jibril Ibrahim and Minawi Sudan Liberation Movement, Democratic Bloc leaders and others, they met in Asmara. Burhan was also called. Burhan visited Asmara too, meeting with Burhan and Isas Evoki, and after that last night Asmara declaration was issued. No one from RSF side was there at the talks in Asmara. So now these parties which have agreed on, the National Ummah Party was there too. These parties are calling for establishment of a transitional government for 2 years, immediate end to war, then formation of transitional government with participation of all parties, then selection of a prime minister to lead this transitional government for 2 years. What these parties agreed on today, can it be implemented? I mean, these parties have their presence. Some are in eastern Sudan, like Khadandoa, Bija tribe elders, which were part of these talks too. Some are based in Darfur, some are in northern Sudan. So, who will recognize the Prime Minister elected by these parties? RSF was not part of talks. Who is behind this effort? RSF or Sudanese military? It seems Sudanese military is behind this Asmara declaration. That is why Al Burhan was called. Military wants establishment of a government. Why? Because military is losing control. Military has lost around 90% of Khartoum, I think, and Al Burhan is planning to establish a new government. That is why political forces are being shown as if they are demanding the establishment of transitional government and they are choosing a prime minister. Basically, military is behind this Asmara declaration. Let's see how this declaration will be implemented. But it means that now the players, neutral players in Darfur like Mini Minawi and others, they want a new government with a civilian prime minister. So they are, it means, opposing rapid support forces. That is what Al Burhan wanted. He wanted these neutral parties to be on military side. Meanwhile, last night we saw a statement from RSF chief Hamdan Dagalo. Hamdan Dagalo last night said that Al Burhan is trying to establish a new separate government in eastern and northern parts of Sudan, which is so-called sea and river state, because Al Burhan has lost control of major parts of Khartoum, Bari, Rahman. His forces are fleeing, and now they want to establish a new government in eastern and northern part of Sudan. But if it happens, Sudan will be split. Sudan will have two governments, one in eastern southern Sudan, eastern northern Sudan, led by military and not military, but the Asmara declaration parties. Military will be backing it. And the other government will be based in Khartoum, led by rapid support forces. So Hamdan is asking Sudanese people to unite to protect Sudan's unity. But can Sudan stay united? Let's see. And will this Al Burhan's government in eastern and northern parts of Sudan be recognized by neighbors? That is why Al Burhan is visiting neighboring countries. He visited Eritrea, he visited Egypt, because these two are the neighbors. Eritrea shares border with eastern Sudan, Egypt with northern Sudan. He visited South Sudan too, and I think 2 days ago he was in Turkey. So Burhan wants to establish a new separate government because Khartoum has come under the control of rapid support forces largely. Yes, Sudan is on its way to a split, but let's see what happens. So far, the military is trying to convince neutral parties to be on military side. It means that some groups in Darfur, in southern, eastern and northern Sudan could join hands to form a new government, but RSF is in control of capital. So ultimately, there will have to be talks between rapid support forces and Sudanese military and these neutral parties. That is the way forward. Otherwise, we're going to we'll continue seeing this conflict in Sudan. Thank you for watching.